All right, welcome to the relationship show. This one is on love languages in a relationship. So this person writes, my hubby and I obviously love each other very much, but we had very different ways of showing it. My love language is physical touch. Excuse me, his love language is physical touch, whereas mine is quality time. In the beginning, we spoke about it, but putting it into play was a whole different game. He would spend hours doing his hobbies while I sat on the couch waiting desperately for him to talk to me for just a few moments. So, yeah, so quality time, realize that with that one, it's about like giving the other person their your full attention. So it's like if he's just doing like these hobbies and they're like sitting together, that actually works to build rapport within like guys and being like friends. If they're just like hanging out, like that builds rapport. But that's not really the case with with women. Is like it's like you need to give them your full attention, and when you give them their full attention, that's when they feel like, oh, I feel the quality time. And that means basically just like stopping what you're doing, recognize what she's doing, and then you're just like totally present with her in that moment. um, Instead, he would get up, hug me, and then sit back down and keep doing his thing. I felt lonely and unloved. Well, thought that he was being caring by taking a brief break to hug me. He believed we were spending time together by being in the same room. On the flip side, I'd always ask if we could have a nice dinner together at the table. Nothing fancy, just together. He'd get bored of doing that so often, and he generally didn't like the formality of a dinner, of a table setting rather than a comfy couch supper. I'd be upset because I was trying so hard to show him that I cared, and mad that he would just didn't see that. So the problem, she says, was we were so familiar with the fuel that fueled our own tanks that we were not able to see how empty it was, leaving it empty. It was leaving each other's. I was pouring diesel in his gas engine, and vice versa. I know that love language is a buzz phrase now, but it truly is truly important that we learn what ours is. So love language is to learn how to speak it. Um, okay. It can be so hard to step outside of what you're used to, especially if you've not been a part of the way you communicate love. For example, my husband's mom is a gifts person. I've never cared for gifts, and neither did anyone in my family. So it was weird to get used to. She was showering me with gifts, and I didn't understand why until I um, learned her that it is a way of saying I love you. Nowadays, we have agreed that on holidays and like we would go to a Timmy's for mom daughter bonding rather than just giving gifts to each other. It's so sweet, and it's because we are learning to speak and act out each other's love languages. Nowadays, life is so different for my hubs and I. The main difference, I've started doing foot spas for him. It's simple. The rule is that there is no tech. That way, he gets his physical touch, and I get my quality time. I've started speaking up when I need a moment with him, and he has started speaking up when he needs some sort of physical touch, even if it's me playing with his hair for a few moments. Learn to speak the love language and see the difference it makes. Don't take it personally if you don't get it right all the first time. Okay, so love languages. This was one of the first books I read, mainly just because it's so popular as far as on relationships. Um, so just it is very, I agree that it is a very useful tool. It can basically make the difference in having a good time and the perception of having a good time with your partner, especially in like a long-term context. This couple is married. um, Now, with one thing as far as the love languages, it's just like you need to use it not so sparingly, but it's like an example would be like if you're going to watch a movie and then everything's great at the beginning, and then in the middle everything's great, and then at the end everything's still great. It's kind of like, who's going to see that movie? It's boring. And so it's like, love language is important, but it's only one tool of the many things that you need. And so, like, for instance, though, like what she's doing here, she's saying like hubby and words like that that kind of suggest that she is in her feminine. And so that's another thing that she's doing right. Um, Now she's in her feminine here, and which, makes you assume that he is in his masculine. And so they've, in this relationship, they've got those two polarities set. That's another one. Okay, then they've got the love languages. Um, Now, with relationships, what I've learned from just like analyzing lots of different marriages and long-term relationships is the biggest problem isn't that they love each other. So it's that they're not attracted to each other, and the two of those things are different. So love, I mean, love is like the love languages, like things like that. It's like the movie example. It's like everything's going good. You need those good things in the movie, but you can't just have the movie be good the whole entire time. You need the attraction as well. And the attraction is where like the tension and release, the uncertainty and the certainty is. And that's where this attraction is built. And so to do that, to have like just be recognize that you need that sense of uncertainty as well as, the certainty in always giving the other person love. So you need to, well, guys should be able to have an attitude that they are mission driven, and that they can, if you press them too much, if it's like, then they'll walk away. And that way it's like, you won't, basically they can't have your way with you if you have display that strength, as far as being able to walk away and mean it. It's the strongest negotiating position there is. Now, I'm not saying like threaten your end of relationship. That's way too far to the extreme. But just having an attitude where you don't really care, um, and as far as getting that kind of attitude, that masculine attitude where you're mission driven, you don't care, it comes from two things. And it's like, if you can implement these two things in your mindset, it will shift your life in this area. You'll start coming up with things that like you never thought you could ever come up with, comebacks, sticking up for yourself just in a moment. And it's like, and those two things are, if you are mission driven, it's like, okay, this is my mission, this is what I'm focusing on. And then also being able to walk away with mean it. It's that simple. It's like, if you can walk away, it's like, don't care attitude. And when you can, and when your woman feels that kind of attitude and feels that if she pushes you too much, if she does something that completely compromises your values, or she cheats on you or something, you have the strength to walk away from her. But if you have that strength, she feels like she is much more safe with you because she can't get her way with you, and she can't basically knock you off your emotional center. Um, and so, in really conclusion here, I mean, it's like love languages are very important, but also the sense of uncertainty with attraction. So also mix things up. Mix dates. Don't get into routines. Don't always tell her where you're going on the dates. Um, Once in a while, give her like surprises, just to implement that sense of uncertainty as well. Um, and if you can take all these concepts of polarities, the love languages, the uncertainty, certainty, the masculine essence as far as being able to walk away, mean it, and mission driven, then you have a much higher likelihood of having a successful relationship.